And joining us now, the official draft expert of the WIP Afternoon Show. I bet he didn't know he had that title as well. Mike Mayock joins us. Mike, thank you again for joining us.
My pleasure, guys.
So, Mike, what is? Do you have a tradition? Like, how are you handling tonight? Like, what's on the rundown for Mike Mayock tonight as the draft goes?
Well, let's be honest here. I mean, for about 25 years, I had a defined position, whether it was the NFL Network or the Raiders, and then the last couple of years, it's been let's grab a cold beer and
there you go. Just have a little fun.
Yeah, exactly. I have a rooting interest in certain teams and more, to be honest, in certain people. And I also love the guys at NFL Network that I work for, Daniel Jeremiah and Eisen and Charles Davis. So I root for them as well.
I guess just a question, you mentioned as a GM, what is the draft leading up to the draft? What is that day like as a GM? Is it quiet because you've done all the work, or does the chaos start in the morning as you start thinking about who might be going where and what moves you might make?
It's interesting because it's a combination of both, and you would think it'd be fairly quiet. The work's done. The boards are up. You've talked to all 31 other teams about potential moves. And really, you're in the draft room. You're making sure that everybody's responsibilities for the evening are set up. All the phone lines are good. You've got all your guys checking on all that. You're touching base around the league with some of the GMs that you've talked with earlier just about potential moves. Hey, we talked about coming up. You still good with that? Or you still good with going down? I'm good with coming up. Let's talk, so you're kind of confirming those kind of things. You're trying to see what else is banging around the league. I remember one year there were rumors that Aaron Rodgers was going to be traded from Green Bay. It was like 2009, maybe 2019 or 20, I forget. And I knew he wasn't because I had been in touch with the GM from Green Bay. But, our whole building was just like, oh, what are you doing? Have you talked to him? I'm like, guys, just calm down. I'll call him again. But, he's not going anywhere this year. And, of course, he wasn't. And I had a good laugh with Brian Gutekunst in Green Bay. But there's an awful lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that people really don't know much about.
Yeah, I find it fascinating listening to it from your perspective, Mike. It's from a player, obviously I can speak from that perspective. You almost like your future is in the hands of 32 other teams. You don't know where you're going to be drafted. Your life is about to change, and you're excited about it despite where you may go as far as around. But from a front office perspective, do you guys have the do you get the butterflies in your stomach, right? It's like, I'm wondering, is there you go into a draft and there's a player or a group of players that you want so bad, and you're in a position in the draft that you're not certain that they're going to be there available to you. And I'm just wondering, do you get the same type of nervous energy and butterflies going into the draft?
Very much so, Mike. And, I'm a coach's son. I always thought I was going to go into coaching. And when I went the personnel way, it kind of changed 180 degrees to the point where Super Bowl weekend was not in February. Super Bowl weekend is at the end of April.
Yeah.
And for all the GMs and the scouts and the work that they put in, and I always felt like it was important to fly all your scouts in and let them be in the room when it was happening. Some teams don't do that. But I thought it was important, since it's their Super Bowl, to let them sit in there and just lap up the energy and excitement, and also gave me a chance to just reach over to the area scout and confirm something if I needed to.
Mike Mayock with us. Mike, one more general question. I'm sorry, I feel like we could have you in for 4 hours one day and just ask you questions about this stuff, about the process of it. I think we all find it really fascinating. We hear a lot about players going up boards and down boards, and I imagine a lot of that is sort of people finding out where players are actually ranked as opposed to where the media finds it. But are there ever actually instances that you've seen of a player actually gaining steam or actually losing steam from anything other than an injury or an off the field thing? Like, can a player fly up boards and go down boards from the beginning of this process to the actual draft?
For the most part, if you trust the process and trust your board, and trust your scouts and ultimately your coaches also. But at the end of the day, if you stack an intelligent board, I think the teams that draft well, the Baltimore Ravens, the Philadelphia Eagles, the Kansas City Chiefs, Pittsburgh, the teams that have stability at the top and trust their process, there's very little movement. What you mentioned is correct, though. Off the field is constant qualification, and the medical is always amazing to me because I'll give you an example. All 32 teams get the same medical information, but it's interpreted differently. And remember that the starting guard in Kansas City, Trey Smith, they got him in the 6th round. He was like a first-round guy, first or second, and he had a heart problem, okay? And everybody qualified that heart problem all the way up to about the end. And some teams were okay with it, other teams weren't. The reason he dropped from a 1 or 2 down to 6 was because all 32 teams were concerned. I had John Gruden poking me in the side from about the 4th round on, like, what about Trey Smith? What? And I couldn't do anything because our doctors said no. So the medical and the off-the-field things get qualified right up to the last instance. We had a 3rd-day pick who ended up being a really good player that we moved up our board a little bit late in the process because I got a report from a pro day where a cross-checking scout called me and said, Mike, I think we're a little low on this kid. Will you get your eye on him today? And I watched his tape, and I was like, wow, I think we are a little low. And I ran it down to the defensive back coach and said, I need this in 2 hours. And we got the kid on a Zoom call, and next thing you know, he had moved up. We took him in the 5th round, but he had been a later pick for us, and he just made a whole bunch of money in this last off-season process. So at the end of the day, that's the way the process should work. It should be tape-based, and you follow your process.
All right, Mike. The Eagles sit at 32, an interesting position for them. Are there a few players that you have, given who the Eagles have drafted the last few years, their needs, and what you've seen on tape, and knowing what you know about the team? Are there a few players that maybe you've dialed in on that you think are most likely for the Eagles to be good picks tonight?
So if they stick and pick at 32. I think philosophically where I'm guessing they are is it's going to be the best defensive player on their board unless there's an offensive unicorn sitting there staring them in the face. In other words, an offensive player they had rated in the top half of the draft somehow was sitting there in the 20s, and they either move up to get him or they wait at 32, and for some reason he's still there. But I think it's the best defensive player on the board. I think the logical names for me are at defensive tackle. There are 3 of them: Derek Harmon, Walter Nolan, and Kenneth Grant. And I think Walter Nolan paired with Jalen Carter would wreak havoc in the NFL. And he's had some off-the-field issues, so he could slide somewhere. I think on the edge, I'd love to see him get Michael Williams or Shamar Stewart. Again, that would require one of them sliding a significant way, but their lack of production might cause them to slide. I think Dominic Ezeraku, the edge from BC, is intriguing at 32. I love Malachi Starks, the safety from Georgia, because I think he can play nickel, and that would give Vic Fangio some more flexibility on that back end between Starks and what Cooper DeJean can play in a couple of positions. And Maxwell Hairston, the other corner from Kentucky. I think, to me, they're kind of the names I've locked in on, and to be honest with you, all of them could be gone. But I think that would be the high-level group, a type of high-level group that Howie would be looking at.
Yeah.
Hey, given their assets, like let's say they're not trading players, they're just trading picks, how high do you think they could trade up to, given what they're at 32? Is trading to 20, is that realistic, or is it trading up 5 or 6 spots that you think is realistic for them?
I think the two realistic landing zones for them are Minnesota at 24, who only have 4 picks and want to move down, or Washington at 29, only have 5 picks and want to move down. Adam Peters, the GM of Washington, has already said, hey, I have no problem trading with an in-division rival. So I think they're the two logicals without starting to give up significant pieces from next year, even though they could, right, because they're going to have so many picks next year. But to use one of the names I gave you a minute ago, if Mykel Williams, who some people have mocked to New Orleans at 9, but if Mykel Williams from Georgia started to slide into the late teens, I think Howie'd be on the phone talking to Minnesota about getting up there, and maybe even a little bit further. But if Maxwell Hairston was the last corner in the clump of corners they had in their minds that were first-round worthy, would he move up to either 24 or 29 to go get him? To me, another logical possibility. And it wouldn't cost you all that much draft capital to get from 32 to 29 or to 24.
Mike Mayock with us. Mike, how do you, from a quarterback perspective, the Eagles are pretty set there, but for the rest of the draft, how did you look at the top prospects, and are there any of the non-top guys that you saw that impressed you?
I'll tell you what's interesting, guys, and two of these guys have Philadelphia roots. The top 3 guys, everybody's talked about ad nauseum, Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders and Jackson Dart from Ole Miss. The next group of 4 guys, I've heard more intrigue from NFL teams than maybe I ever had on second-day guys. And that would be Jalen Milroe from Alabama, Tyler Shuck, Louisville, McCord, kid from St. Joe's Prep at Syracuse, and Will Howard, kid from Downingtown at Ohio State. I think teams are grinding the hell out of those 4 kids, and I think you're going to see all 4 of them go on the second day, maybe 3 of them in the second round, especially considering that the Giants and Cleveland and potentially New Orleans, all with quarterback needs, probably aren't going that way in round 1.
Yeah.
All right, Mike. Last question. So we do a thing on the show where I don't watch college football, and where I just sort of what do you do when you study right at the end there? I cram. I watch a lot of YouTube, and I decide who my best players at every position are. And my favorite edge guy in the whole draft, and everybody laughed at me, is Braden Swinson from LSU. What do you think of him? You can laugh at me.
I don't laugh at people. I mean,
all right.
I really don't. I've had thousands of people want to know what I think about guys they like, and I think that's cool. It signifies interest. I think he's a solid player that is probably going to go in the 3rd round, which means he's a really good top 100 player. I just don't think he's got the same kind of burst that you're going to see out of the probably 10 or 12 guys that go ahead of him.
I'll take it. He didn't laugh at me like Jack and Ike did. So I'll take it.
Yep.
All right, Mike. Well, we appreciate all the calls leading up.
It's been awesome,
draft.
brother.
Yeah,
yep.
It's been great, and I'm sure it'll be Eagles season before we know it. We'll be talking to you again.
Hey, I appreciate you guys, and thanks very much for having me.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, Mike.
I seriously could talk to Mayock for 4 hours.
Yeah, that's why I
about
just
being
sit there
a
and
GM.
listen, man. Just listen.